All right, we have Kimberley Jones with us today. She is an amazing woman doing such beautiful work in the world, and I'm so excited to have you here today, Kimberley, on the Birthing in New Earth Gathering. This will be your third gathering with us, and yeah, I'm just really grateful for our connection that we've made over the last year. So it's been 1 year since our first interview together. So thank you for being here with us today.
Thank you, Samantha. I love chatting with you. Love working with you.
I love chatting to you too. So I'm just gonna, for our viewers who may not know you, I just want to give just a little bit about you. So Kimberley is an award-winning sacred feminine activist and soul midwife, and for 20 years she's been helping women, awaken women, rebirth the feminine in themselves, their lives, and the world. So yeah, she's been working with this topic. So we have a very, I think, important topic to cover today. And this has been Kimberley's passion for many years now. And so I'm really excited to delve deep into this and to draw the wisdom from Kimberley and to share on this. And so our topic today is about the witch wound and healing the witch wound. And so I guess I really wanted to start with, well, what is it? From maybe someone might not have ever heard of it. I actually found you probably, I don't know, maybe 6-7 years ago is how I found you, was the healing the witch wound, when I was really doing work on that. And I don't know how I found it. Must have been like an article somewhere, and then it was like healing the witch wound, and I just was like, oh my gosh, yes, this is what I've been looking for. And so this is really what I connected to you. So I'm really happy to talk about it. So I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that must have been, there was one article I wrote many years ago on my original blog about the witch wound, and that was the one that went viral, really hit a moment, I think, and resonated with a lot of people, mainly women, but lots of people, actually, different genders and different identities, contacted me and really felt that it spoke to them and made sense of something. I just think sometimes when these truths emerge, they really resonate deeply in a way that doesn't really make sense, and we might not fully understand why. I mean, I wouldn't say that any of the people that really resonated with this work when I started it would have identified as a witch necessarily. It was just as an awakening person that they resonated with what I was talking about. So yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I think that is where we connected. So what is the witch wound? Yeah, so for those who might not know, the witch wound is a collective trauma, an ancestral wound, a psychic scar, a societal pattern, block that was created in our lineages, in our ideologies, in our worlds hundreds of years ago. There was a 300-year period where the church got pretty unhappy with women in particular being powerful. The church wanted a monotheistic, single masculine deity godhead to center organized religion around, and so women very much embodied and were associated with the divine feminine and the goddess, and something that was free and very powerful and woven through all of life and accessible through what were indigenous practices, many of which are returning now. So sitting in circle, working with herbs, working with the moon, honoring our menstrual cycle, but also just being independent, intelligent, powerful women. So for certain reasons, for various reasons, those in positions of power in patriarchy were not happy with women in particular having that kind of power. So sort of long story short, accusing women of witchcraft and drumming up a propaganda about this idea of the witch and being evil and associated with the devil was very contrary to the very sort of strict messaging around church and Christianity at the time. So calling a woman a witch was like the antithesis to what they wanted society to represent, what was holy, what was pure, what was good, what was acceptable. So women were wrongly accused of witchcraft, and killed regularly for thousands of women all over the world for about a 300-year history. So if you think about that, for 300 years, being a woman, you were scared to do anything, say anything, be anything, stand out in any way, shape or form. The accusation of witch was what women feared more than anything else. And actually their families, their male family members and partners sometimes also feared it for them, which is why now everybody actually can relate to it on some level when it awakens within them. So that witch wound got passed on. I mean, when I work with clients, it comes up in past lives. We see that it's been passed through at the ancestral lineage. And also we can see how it shows up in education, medicine, lots of different areas of society. And it really silences, I say women a lot, but that's because those are mainly the people that have come to me as clients and where I've observed this wound, but I'm aware it's much wider than that. But really it's the area that I've been focusing on and exploring for about 20 years is how it suppresses our true magical, intuitive, psychic, spiritual power. And along with that, our capacity to embody the divine feminine and the energies of the goddess that have been buried and suppressed and deleted, and from history books, from, as I say, education, from medicine, from society, from how women relate to other women. So it's a deep one. Yeah, I mean, in my own family, it showed up as, because I come from a long line of, my mum was a tarot reader, tea leaf reader, a clairvoyant medium. My nan communicated with animals, very aware of spirit. My great grandmother mentored my mum on tea leaves, tarot. And so I very little kind of observed all of that. But one thing I was very aware of was the fear that was around it. You know, they were scared of people knowing that that's what they did. So my mum was a hairdresser and she made clothes, and my nan made clothes and was a jeweler. They did all these other things, but kind of behind closed doors, hiding in that spiritual closet, you know, they were doing the work. But there was a lot of fear. I was very aware of that. So when I was a child, I am an energy intuitive. So I saw these patterns in their bodies, in their energy, but I didn't have a name. I didn't know it was the witch wound. I just knew that they were kind of blocked around the throat and scared of people knowing that that's what they did as a gift. And my mum actively from childhood discouraged me from following this path, as if you can do anything about that, you know, if it's your calling. But that was her projecting. She was trying to protect me, but she was also projecting her own fear. And she said, I don't want you to do this work. It's not a blessing, it's a curse. So that's that's how she framed it. That was her. No, she'd been terrified into keeping quiet, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, all three of them had experienced violence and physical abuse from husbands that were threatened by their power. Because when you're that psychic, you're that visionary, you're that clairvoyant, you know when you're being lied to, you know when your partner's having an affair, you know what, you know, and you call them out on that. Certainly going back into the 1940s, 50s, 60s, 70s. The result was violence, aggression, gaslighting, just burying no truth, and that power further.
Yeah. And then how did it for you, like when did you coin this term, or when did it rise up for you, the witch wound? Like, because you witnessed it as you were a child, you know, firsthand with your family, but then when did it start becoming like something like, oh, this is something I need to work with and heal within myself, and then so that you can help heal others with this?
Oh yes, well, I think the seeds were really early. At school we read a book called The Crucible, and I think that was a lot of people's first introduction to the Salem witch trials. It was a book written about the Salem witch trials. So I don't know, I was doing my GCSE English, so don't know, 11 or 12, something like that. And I can remember my whole body juddering as I was reading certain bits of this book, and I didn't know what was happening. I didn't know why I was, clearly there was this, this trauma response or this recognition in my body, in my cells, in my DNA somewhere. Oh, and it brought so much up. And from that moment on, I just became super aware of films, TV shows, anything that was referencing. I spoke to my nan about it because she used to take me to the library, obviously way before Google. So we trotted down to the library, and I couldn't find anything. I remember asking the librarian to help me. Those films, what was it called? Microfiche. It was like,
yeah. I know what you're talking about.
In front of the screen scanning. Couldn't find it. I really couldn't find anything. All I had was this book, The Crucible, and of course I was quite young. I didn't really know what I was looking for. So I think I'm trying to piece it together, because the term the witch wound came in my teens. When I was 14, I'd saved up for my own little black and white telly for my bedroom so I could start watching the Oprah Winfrey show all on my own with my journal, making notes. And there was somewhere along the line there, I don't know, a guest that was on, or and I was starting to understand trauma and starting to understand that things that have happened in our collective history can be affecting people now. This was quite early. I didn't really understand it, but it was all. And then I started having a series of dreams, and so then I think the term the witch wound, and I had a conversation with my mum then and said, are you a witch? I just came out and asked her when I was about 12 or 13, are you a witch? And so that began a conversation over a period of years that she was sort of reluctant to talk about it, but she said, yeah, I would call myself a white witch. So then we started this whole conversation. Well, what do you mean by white witch? So yeah, it was quite early days. And then, as people who've been following my work for a long time will know, my mum passed away when I was 25 after a really long illness, and heartbroken. But what happened was it triggered not only a spiritual emergency and a spiritual crisis, which is another area that I do a lot of work in and have been involved with different organizations and charities, helping to normalize spiritual experiences and understand the relationship between mental health, mental illness, and spiritual growth and transformation. So I had my first big explosive series of Kundalini crisis and so on. I was just like lightning hitting me, just exploded open. But what I didn't realize at the time, that when that happens, it can be part of a lineage, an ancestral download. If you come from a particularly mediumistic or clairvoyant family, I didn't know that because of my mum's fear of this of us. I really wasn't sort of apprenticed or initiated in a way that prepared me for this ancestral download. And so I realized now that was the beginning of the work, really. I mean, I had to sort myself out because I was a wreck. It just, anyone who's been through any kind of Kundalini crisis or spiritual emergency, everything falls apart, your ego, your identity, your personality. That's why it can be so closely associated with mental illness if it's not understood. But that path of making sense of all of that, my lineage and the extreme nature of my awakening, and me coming to understand that the reason that was so extreme was because of the witch suppressing that which needed perhaps to flow in a more healthy, natural way. So it was just a lot had built up for several generations, and it just all exploded out of me, through me, in one go. So as much as the last 20 years has been about working and serving and teaching and guiding, it's also obviously been about me healing and understanding and that witch wound is, and how very deeply it impacts me, my lineage, the world, and how many women are suppressing. And as I say, it's not, but this is my experience, how many how many people are suppressing, or society has suppressed it, so they're not even aware that it's all built up. And
it's there. It's so there. Like, even like as we're it's so interesting. Like, as we're talking, like, I feel it in my throat right now. Like, it's like clogging up. It's like
really
it's so interesting.
very
Yeah, and it's something I've been aware of, for years, and when it comes out in different ways, like for me, even just when I remember when first doing the gathering, and it was a big thing for me to kind of like be seen and put myself out there, because I just played small for so long. But then it was like, well, the universe or my guide, whatever, was like, no, you can't. You have to go out now, and you have to be seen. But that was a really big thing for me to meet up, to overcome. And so maybe you can, share other things that you've noticed with your clients, and that are, and for women in general, like things that we've had that may be showing up as the witch wound in present time.
Well, on a personal level, that's the most common thing that comes up, is the throat, issues around the throat. So my neck very often goes a bit red and patchy when I do these talks and things. So that's happening. And it's like, excuse me, you're feeling it. I'm gurgling and burping, and it's all here. It's not from my stomach, it's from here.
I got like this big bubble sitting right here.
That's right. So that's one of the most common, like, personal body symptoms, is around the throat and in the voice. And if you're preparing to do a podcast, or even just stand up to somebody and speak your truth, or grow in your life in some way, then it can be quite common to feel like your voice won't come out, or your voice goes croaky, or you start coughing or clearing your throat, or your throat gets patchy and red and hot like mine does, or anxiety, panic attacks, fear, all kinds of reasons and excuses to not do the thing, to not be.
I know this.
So on an energy level, I'd started a clinical practice doing healing work, Reiki readings in a complementary therapy clinic in the UK. And in the process of doing the Reiki, sharing the Reiki with clients as they were resting on the couch, that's when I realized that I could see into the body and into the energy fields of a person, sort of through I thought it was through the chakras in my hands. It was like I had eyes in the palms of my hands. That's kind of how it started. So different people were coming online as I was doing the work. I mean, a lot of people that are body workers, I'm sure, will understand that as well, that you might not start off thinking that you're going to be reading a client, but the more you're in touch with the client's body, the more you start picking up on things. So I started picking up on and seeing colors, and then I started mapping what I was seeing onto an outline of a human form on my computer in the room with the client. There was so much coming in, and I felt guided to map it just using some airbrushy type software, graphic software. So I was back and forth between the client and the computer, just trying to capture some version of what I mean, it was impossible to capture it really, but it was just a sketch. Now, I did thousands of these scans over a period of years. And so you start to notice patterns. And obviously I'm very aware of clients maybe reflecting my patterns and vice versa. And so that was part of the mix. But over a period of years, there was a consistent pattern around the neck and around the throat. And the women where that was because most of my clients were women, where that wound, or where that pattern, that block of energy, that darker energy started to show up, women were having flashbacks or deep memory surfacing in the process of this space that we created together. So that there was a period of a few years where I'd sort of not forgotten about the witch wound, but I was obviously preoccupied with integrating my own spiritual emergency and finding my way to my work. And then, of course, I think once I started sort of putting my hands on people and doing the work, it all sort of started to come together, and I was seeing the visions with them, things that they were experiencing. So they were having deep memory flashbacks whether it's past life or whether it's ancestral or all the same or parallel lives or whatever. It was information that they were carrying in their body that was manifesting things in their lives in particular ways that they were expressing was holding them back. So it's holding them back in their career or holding them back from being their true selves. Or the majority of people that find their way to me say, you know, I feel I'm here for something. I'm really unhappy doing what I'm doing. I don't seem to be able to connect with what that thing is, but I can feel it in me. And so my work has been like being a bit of a detective and leading them to finding that for themselves. In the process of doing that, this witch wound was the main thing that just, you know, kept coming up as the main thing holding them back.
Yeah. Wow. It's and I think that this would be, I would say for most women, this would have some kind of effect on them. Would you say like, whether it's, you know, because it is a lineage passed down, intergenerational trauma that's passed down. And then, you know, I've had similar flashbacks of, you know, like you said, whether it's my past lives or, you know, ancestral. But this would affect many, 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 many women on the planet right now, I would say. And it is, it's huge. It's a huge thing.
Yeah, and it's very topical because of what's happening. A lot of people are coming to me with, let's say, symptoms of the witch wound rising in them.
Yeah.
Particularly because of the censorship that's happening in the world right now, and a lot of people sensing that something's going on that's not being spoken about, and that most people are actually naturally very intuitive, and they can smell bullshit a mile away. Most people have got pretty honed, you know, BS detectors. Of course, what's happening on a global scale is people's knowing, intuition, hunch, BS detectors, or their own personal research and intelligence is being gaslighted, suppressed, ignored, possibly even punished. The same energy of the times in a different form. So it's really, this is why I feel this work is coming to the fore more than ever now, is because healing that particular wound is what frees us.
Yes.
Not be afraid, regardless of what the world to stand for something bigger and more important than some ego agenda. And as you know, as we've talked about before, the big picture is that all of this stuff that's coming up is part of that patriarchy dissolving and falling. So this new sort of equal, for me, the sacred feminine, the divine feminine isn't about women taking over. And you know, it's about equality and balance and harmony and working together and remembering who we really are beneath all that BS.
Yes, I think that I totally agree with you that what's happening on the planet right now, it's very triggering to the witch wound, you know, like if you, I know I felt it a few times when I'm speaking my truth. It's like this moment of like, I gotta pull it, like that contraction, like this moment of contraction, because I'm scared of speaking what I believe in because of being ostracized, being canceled, and like for many, they're getting censored, they're getting, and like you said, getting punished. So this is big, and I think. And then I really like what you said, but this is a time for us to heal that so that we can rise, you know, that we can step up and come together and help shift out of this old patriarchal paradigm into the divine feminine, into new earth or a new era, or whatever you want to call it. It's very important, like you said.
Yeah, and for some people it is as simple as just acknowledging that it's there, noticing that's why they feel how they feel, maybe looking into it a little bit, and then just being determined they're going to speak anyway, and off they go. And for some people it's that graceful. For other people it's a deeply embodied trauma and a family wound that needs real care and tending to. So I'm very aware of not wanting to kind of do the spiritual bypassing on this. It's not a new age concept. It's a very deep societal wound, and there are many very wise elders that don't believe it's possible to heal this. I mean, I like to believe that it is, but in time and in a few generations, perhaps. On a personal level, I feel we can do pretty amazing things, miraculous things, so that we can move forward, and then perhaps those ripple effects can be felt in a wider way. But also I just feel that actually a lot of that's in the way of the rising, if you like, is falling now anyway. And so for some of us, our job is to get out of the way. But definitely healing the witch wound is about women reclaiming their power, or just reviving the power that's inherent within them. You know, the intelligence, the independence. It's really the witch wound. The impact of the witch wound repressed mainly women's intuitive, creative, and sexual. And I think we've mentioned before that those 3 wounds could be summarized as bitch, witch, and whore.
Yeah.
And those are the 3 ways that women's power have been made wrong, shamed, and suppressed.
Yeah, I love that you said that, because I was actually just thinking that in my head right when you said it. But it's so true. So I guess it is like, it is reclaiming our power, our sovereignty, reclaiming these areas of our life. And I think that it's also really beautiful to, like to come together, to support each other as we move through this time. And so what are other ways that you help women to move through this and to heal the witch wound, and any other ideas? And
Wow, lots of answers to that question. I mean, me doing my thing, I think, helps. It certainly seems to have encouraged other people to feel that they can do it too. Emboldened, inspired, empowered. So I'm very aware of having to overcome my own fears and my own wounds on a regular basis, as a leader or a teacher. I personally use and practice and go as deep and as courageously into all my inherited gifts. Those in one-to-one sessions, again, that's a way for me to say, it's okay to be really out there and really mystical, magical, woo-woo, weird, crazy, all the labels that have been slapped on it. This is, and I am it without apology. So I think that translates. In a one-to-one, it might involve a shamanic soul retrieval, a guided journey, breath work, guiding a woman through the body to find the energy of the wounding and just gently stroke it and breathe into it and be with it and allow that energy to reveal whatever it wants to reveal, and then be witnessed. And that can be times for things to move. Just as when we started talking about recognizing both of our throats and how our throats were feeling, we both started sort of gurgling and it's saying, oh, thanks, getting our attention and communicating. So that's sort of, and also just telling the stories, I think, raising awareness of the fact that it exists and how it might be affecting people. That can sometimes be enough. A lot of people didn't even know what this thing was or where it comes from. And then there are practices and tools that we can do for ourselves as we perhaps explore our own witch wound and how we might bring more of that divine feminine energy back into ourselves or release it from within ourselves. So again, it's responding to what's surfacing. So if it's the throat that's getting your attention every time you try and step up, or you're hiding your tarot cards from your mother-in-law in the cupboard whenever she comes around, and your throat just, you feel like, if it's your throat that's showing you something, then focus there. So it might be singing to the radio, when you're doing the dishes or something, and allowing yourself to be a bit louder than you dare and get the words wrong and be out of tune, and just kind of, that whole sing like nobody's listening. Honing, chanting, affirmations, using the voice. There are some great videos on YouTube, solfeggio, hertz frequencies of the throat chakra, crystal bowls that are tuned to the throat chakra, frequency, tuning forks that are tuned to the throat chakra. You know, there are all kinds of sound. So if it's showing around the throat or thymus tapping, you can just tap. That's very helpful. Massaging essential oils, that can be very helpful. So there are lots of practices, you know, just practical practices. It depends where it's showing up in the body, but it is mainly of here. Another thing you can do is nurture your intuition. If you find a safe person, a safe way, and a safe place to do it. So it might be the privacy of your bedroom with your journal, and just start exploring or reflecting on your day and things that you, or your dreams, or things that you sensed from people, or little things that drifted in while you were doing something else. Don't let them just waft off, you know, honor them, write them down. And the act of doing that and channeling it down through the body, down the arm, out of the hand, through the pen, onto the page, out into the world, ink and paper, that itself is strengthening that pathway, if you like. Saying, I honor this part of myself, it's important, it's real, I'm grounding it, and then more comes and more comes and more comes. So that's a really great way. And notice as you do that, how are you feeling about it? You know, notice, are you judging yourself? Are you thinking, oh, I'm just making this up, oh god, I hope nobody finds this? And just notice those things as well, those thoughts, and be gentle with yourself about those things.
I really love that what you said, because it is like just reconnecting and coming back into ourselves and trusting ourselves again, because we've just kind of shut down those you know, like you said, those abilities, that intuition so much over the years, and then it's into and like you said, you could go through like a spiritual emergency and let it all come out at one time, or you can just slowly let it open and just start to train the muscles, you know, the neural pathways, and really letting that open. And I really love that, letting, just really tuning into all the thoughts that you have and creating that space to let these things come in is so important, and really beautiful.
Do it with art, you can do it with moving your body, any way that you feel moved to get that energy moving, and then starting to dare to express yourself a little bit more. But I just want to say as well that repressed intuition, or in South America they call it repressed mediumicity, I believe, is a huge factor in women's mental health issues. To be honest, but in mental health issues, suppressing that side of our nature in favor of just what is physical, measurable, tangible, patriarchal, Newtonian, you know, the soul has been buried and locked away for so long. And repressing our intuition and our creativity leads to disease, unwellness, something that I cycle through in my own life. But for me personally, in relationship to the witch wound and spiritual awakening, my intuitive creative power comes online in the safest, most stable, rooted, grounded and powerful way, actually, when I focus on my body and being in nature and grounding. And if you're working on healing the witch wound and nourishing and nurturing your intuition, the opposite frequency of that is the physicality, is the 3D. And a lot of awakening people reject the 3D. But if you're very sensitive, very intuitive, traumatized, this is what I've noticed with those people that I work with and myself, who I refer to as top downers. So our journey is more the descension path than the ascension path. So if you are nourishing and nurturing your intuition and healing the witch wound, the one thing I found consistently most powerful is to actually gently nurture your, don't do really profound, powerful meditations that blast your third eye open, just very grounded, gentle nurturing of your inner self and your inner power and your inner wisdom, while doing a lot of exercise, gardening, cleaning, you know, massage, dancing, being out in nature, very rooting, grounding. Because that's, once I discovered that, once I kind of got back into my body a bit and rooted myself into the great mother, into the earth, into that web of life, that ancient land web of life, then my intuition became more powerful than I could have ever imagined. But it was safe. I was held. And that the witch wound starts to transform as well. So it's two things. It's root to rise.
Yeah, I was thinking that because we had a conversation about this before. It's like really about rooting, and then we can rise from there. Yeah. That's so powerful. Like, it's so true. If we're not embodied and we're not in our body, then then we're disconnected. We're disconnected from ourselves. And really, it's like being in the body is where our healing begins. Like, this is how we heal, is when we ground into the body, because we are human and we are having this human experience. And like you said, for many the top downers, we try to transcend or ascend the human experience, but we're here to be human, and it's finding that balance, and this is the same with the balance between the feminine and the masculine. It's about both are equally important and needed in order for us to live fully in our full potential in this vessel and this life experience that we're having.
Well said.
Oh, so much that we've delved into. Is there anything else that's coming through to you that you want to share about the witch wound, or really even like where we're heading, like what's happening on the planet right now? It's like we could have probably a whole nother hour conversation. But I think that I know it feels chaotic out there, but I feel like we are moving into this new era, and we're in this transition period. And maybe your thoughts.
Big question.
Yeah.
I think I just repeat what I touched on earlier, that these are the times of the falling of patriarchy, and our role can be to consciously unweave internalized patriarchy, so that as the ship goes down, we don't get pulled down with it. And then we can, rather than fight the old, we are ready to create the new together. And to trust the process. It feels like a collective birthing. People talk about labor pains, or the labor process, or contractions and constrictions and expansions. And it feels, that's, people have been talking about that and using that metaphor for the evolution of human consciousness since the 60s and the 70s, and probably way earlier than that. But now we really are sort of facing that birth moment. And I think it gets tougher just, before it gets better. I really believe that if we don't get too attached to the story that's playing out, and do our work to keep coming back to ourselves, our bodies, our breath, our truth, our inner knowing, and who we are beyond the story, whether it's the personal story or the collective story, that's where I'm at with it, is disengaging from the story and reconnecting to the truth underneath, and that deep knowing of what's really playing out, which is this birthing or rebirthing of a new ancient way of being. Heaven on earth, if you like. And I don't really mean that in a trite way, but I think I think Charles Eisenstein refers to it as the beautiful world in our hearts we know is possible, or something like that. But, most of us know that something's not right in the world is. And so if we can just sort of loosen our grip a little bit, not fight the crumbling. I know it's scary, but not fight it, because actually we're kind of being given what we want. It just might be a bit of a messy process in the receiving, in the creation of it. The process, I think, is the message for me that process.
I love what you said, to like loosen the grip, because it's not about fighting. It's not a revolution fight, it's an evolution, and we definitely are in the transition. So I was just talking about it earlier today, the birthing process and it's like the transition. We're in transition, and in transition, and labor is the most intense part of labor, and it's like right before you're about to give birth. It's the most intense, and a lot of times women, you know, are like, okay, I'm done, I can't do this anymore, and they want to give up. And that, I feel like that's where we are. We're in this, the most intense, like the intensity of it before it can get better. And it's this, it's very much the same. And I love that, you know, to detach from the, to let go of the story and just to really touch in with what we know is true in our hearts. And yeah, it's so important, so important. Mm.
Don't get me wrong, there's a place for righteous rage.
Yeah.
You know,
Yes.
we will keep reconnecting with the story, and that's okay. And then just
Yeah.
breathe and to sort of step back. And there's definitely a place for, there is a place for revolution, and there is a place for righteous rage at the moment. But I think it's for each of us to decide what we're capable of and what feels right and what feels good, and really take good care of ourselves, and to know that if that's your role, if you feel called to on the ground activism, then all power to you. That's not something that I mean, I do my own bit in terms of sacred feminine, intuitive, spiritual activism. But we need to do what's right for us, you know, different people, different health issues, different life situations. And I'm certainly not talking about kind of trying to transcend and, you know, disengage from life or disengage from the world. But yes, quite rightly, it's that sort of just not getting too entangled with the story so that it pulls you down, because many people as well, don't we, to be feeling in as good a place as possible, feeling strong and feeling grounded and ready to serve and ready to facilitate this new world.
It's so true, really, like letting, because we need, it's like the we need to shine, we need to let ourselves be open and shine our light. And if we're entangled and bringing us down, then it's not serving. And yeah, oh, I could keep talking to you for so much longer. This has been a really beautiful conversation, and so important and so relevant for this time. And you just gave so many beautiful drops and so many beautiful techniques for people to really come back home to their selves, so that we are coming back into our truth and we are coming back into our power. And, you know, whether it's, you know, in channeling our energy into the areas that we, you know, where our heart wants us to, whether it is like that conscious rage, or whether it is sacred activism, or whether it is, you know, doing our own energy work and healing within ourselves, like making those choices that are best for us. So it's so important. And I would love for you to share how people can find you and get in touch with you and share just let us know what you're sharing in the world.
Healingthewitchwound.co.uk. And I'm in the process of climbing back into my writing cave. So yeah, writing the book about all of this. Yeah.
Beautiful. And then you can find her on Instagram, and she shares lots of beautiful posts and inspiration, and I'm excited for your book.
Thank you, lovely.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for joining us and for sharing, and I look forward to continue our connection and how this will unfold over the next years. And coming together, I think, is so important, and I'm just really grateful for our connection and all that you're sharing in the world. Yes, together we rise. Amazing. And sisters stand together. Yes.
We do our best.
Yes, we do, each moment.
Thank you, lovely.
So, thank you, Kimberly, for joining us. Thank you all for joining in with us today and for being part of this gathering and gathering together at this very, pivotal time on our planet. So thank you for taking this time out of your day to be here with us. So much love to you all. Much love to you, Kimberly, and see you soon. Bye.